Hello everybody, this is Freddy from We Scale Your Brand, where we help 6-figure and 7-figure e-commerce brands scale through Facebook ad. And this video is all about creative testing. I'm going to walk you through the exact creative testing structure that we use to, scale brands from 500 to 5,000 per day in ad spend. The exact structure that we use to find creative winners. And yeah, it's going to be a very interesting video, and I would say let's get right into it. So the first question, what is the purpose of our creative testing campaign? And that is super simple. The purpose is to find ads that consistently perform at or above our target CPA, target cost per acquisition, or at least to find stuff that comes the closest to it. You could also say ads that outperform your current best performing ads, right? That's the goal. If you have an ad that may be performing at 3x, consistently, your goal is to find an ad that performs at like 3.1x consistently, right? So essentially, finding winning combinations of creatives plus headline plus ad copy that we can use to scale, right? So stuff that wins, that at least breaks even in the front end, right? So yeah, how does this look like, when we, go into one of our ad accounts? So we have one single campaign for creative testing, usually depends kind of on how many products you have, etc. If you have multiple products and you want to advertise multiple different products and see which one of those perform the best, then we would have different campaigns. But generally speaking, one creative testing campaign, our account tag, WSYB stands for our internal account tag. You might not want to use that, but this just gives an insight that this campaign is from us. Then we have the testing tag, tells us this is a testing campaign. Then we have the product name, especially if you're advertising multiple products. This comes in handy. You can kind of compare products immediately. Then we have the TOF tag, which stands for top of the funnel, which basically means we are trying to reach new people with this. This is not any remarketing or retargeting campaign. And then we have the date of when the campaign has, launched, so that we immediately know, how old this campaign is. Then campaign objective, super simple: conversions, optimize for purchases. This is generally speaking what you want in 99% of the time. You don't want any add to carts, you don't want any view contents. What you want, especially if your e-commerce D2C brand, is purchases, right? So this is what we optimize for: conversions, purchases. Then CBO or ABO, this kind of depends on where you're at, how much budget you have. I'm going to be answering that question later on, but for now, let's just keep it on depends. Then the ad set structure. This is where things get interesting. So we're using the same interest group for every single ad set in our testing campaign, and the way we kind of separate ad sets is by concept. The question comes up like, what is a concept? So a concept, super simply said, is basically could be anything, right? You could compare videos versus images. You could also compare like UGC headlines versus benefit headlines. It could be influencer testimonials versus UGC customer testimonials, right? Essentially stuff that is separated, right? Again, the most basic, simple concept is probably images versus video. And separating by concept allows us basically to run kind of a split test. It's not really a split test, but the thing that comes closest to a split test, or A/B testing, for Facebook ads. And in the end, the goal is also to find out which concept works better. So, you might have images that get us like a 2x ROAS, and then you have videos that consistently get us like a 2.5x ROAS. So this could tell you that videos tend to perform better in that account, right? And this is what we want to do with testing. We want to find the concept that works best for our account, right? And why we're using the same audience in every ad set is also quite easy to understand. We want to have constants. When it comes to testing, the stuff that we want to test should always be tested against the same stuff. And in this case, against the same audience. So if you would want to test new interest groups, the way you would do that is always use the same ads and then launch new interest groups or new audiences against those ads, right? The goal is to find out really what is winning, like which concept or like which creative concept is winning. It's not, maybe this interest group is better than this one and therefore this one is winning, but you're also testing new creatives against it, so I'm not quite sure. The goal is to have constants when it comes to testing, and the way we get constants is by broad targeting. If you have thousands of dollars in ad spend, probably if $10,000 of ad spend, you could probably use broad targeting. This would be only age and gender set if you're just starting out, or if you have, only a few $1,000s in ad spend, you don't have as many purchases, maybe even below 100, below 500, below 1,000, I would go for broad interest groups in your niche. So if you're selling clothing, just go for clothing, and that's about it. So if a few million people in there, and Facebook is very, very good at finding the right people in a broad interest group. Even in broad targeting, so no targeting at all, they're very, very good at finding the people that end up buying from you. So yeah, if you're probably at below 1,000 per day, below 500, definitely go for broad interest groups. Again, could be clothing if you're selling clothing, could be like cars if you're selling car accessories or whatever. Just don't get too focused on the interest groups because they don't matter as much, right? Because definitely the biggest impact, or the biggest lever that you have when it comes to improving your ROAS is definitely the creative by 100%. You can have the best audiences, you can have the best ad copy, you can have the best headlines. They don't matter if your creative is shit. So don't worry too much about the audiences that you're targeting. Target broad, use interest expansion, and Facebook will basically do the job for you, right? Then placements, automatic placements, super simple. We want to give Facebook the best room to optimize, to breathe. Then bid strategy is super simple, lowest cost. You don't want to experiment with bidding, especially if you're just in your testing phase. Attribution window could kind of also depend on how much you're spending on Google, on Snapchat, etc. But if you're not spending much money overall, I would definitely go for 70-click one view, because this kind of gives Facebook the most data to optimize for, right? Then the number of ad in a DCT is I would not use more than 20 variations. So you may be using like 5 headlines and like one creative, one ad copy. Those would be like 5 different variations. So if you have 5 headlines and 2 images, you're already at 10. So you can just use 2 different ad copies, and then you write at the 20 different variations. So I wouldn't use like 3 headlines, 3 ad copies and 3 images, because that's just too much. So yeah, just make sure you stay below the 20 variants. Then when should you turn off stuff? So generally also kind of depends again on your budget, on your CPA, but especially if you're just starting out, you're running ads to a new broad interest group, I would definitely wait between 5 to 10x your target CPA. So if you're if you want to get new customers for like $10 a piece, I would definitely wait at least till 50, if not even 100 or more. If you have a higher CPA, you can probably cut that off. You can probably stay around the 5 to 10x. But yeah, again, at like a $10 CPA goal, I usually let them run to like 10 to 15x to give Facebook some room to optimize, some room to breathe. Especially if you're not having much data, it is crucial to give Facebook the data that they need in order to optimize your ads. Then it's super simple, when should I move my ads to my scaling campaign? When should you start scaling up ads? And this is something, where I see a lot of people, they get like 2 or 3 purchases at like a super high ROAS, and they're like, okay, I found the gold nugget, and they try to scale up and they kind of completely fail. And the answer to the question, when should I move stuff to my scaling campaign, is when you're consistently getting good results. Not within 10 to 15 purchases. This could be 50 plus purchases that give you basically at 50 purchases. It's a good benchmark. And before that, I wouldn't move anything to like a scaling campaign or like try to scale stuff, because at like even at 10 to 15 purchases, you don't have enough data, or Facebook doesn't have enough data to be stable. If you would scale at 10 to 15 purchases, your ROAS will just drop, and you will be wondering why your performance dropped. And it is because you don't have any consistency in the ad account, right? So then, whether you should be using AB or CBO is kind of the question, or this, question depends on your budget. If you're at a low budget, below 500, I would definitely go for CBO. CBO has the big benefit that that Facebook focuses on efficiency, versus, kind of rapid testing. So if you have more budget, you can just, assign a certain amount of money to each concept, test it, and, at like, I don't know, 1,000 per concept, you turn it off, the worst one. If you are at a lower budget, you definitely want to kind of focus on efficiency. So, getting the best, or the lowest CPA possible, the highest ROAS possible for you. And this is what CBO is for. You use CBO for scaling. I will do a separate review about scaling, but CBO focuses on efficiency. And that's what you should focus on as well if you are especially at below $500 per day. So that's why I would definitely say at that range, use CBO for testing. And even if, like 80% of your ad spend goes to like one ad set, if that is performing, you have nothing to worry about. Versus, if you would have like 500 per day and like 2 ad set at like $250 per day, and like one doesn't perform at all, you kind of wasted $250. But if, you would be using CBO and like 450 gets like 1 ad set and that performs, you're happy, right? So that's what definitely, focus on efficiency if you're not spending as much money, right? So yeah, I hope I explained everything really well. Again, super simple concept, CBO campaign, budget, try to see that each ad set can get 50 purchases per week, theoretically. Divide by concepts. Again, concept could be anything. It could be image versus video. You basically want to separate all of the assets that you have to kind of find out the ones which work best for your ad account. Test against the same interest group. If you have lots of data and maybe lots of organic traffic, you've never run Facebook ads before, you have like thousands of purchases, you could also use like 1% lookalike to test at lower budgets. But make sure that you always use the same interest group or lookalike for testing purposes, because otherwise you can't find out what is really working. Is it the interest group or is it the creative concept that I'm testing at the moment? Automatic placements, as always, bid strategy, lowest cost, 70-click one view optimization, attribution window, and then maximum of 20 variations per ad set, right? Yeah, that's about it. That's how we test creatives. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed this video.